Good evening all, and welcome to part 2 of the Justice for Child Q panel discussions. We just want to say a big welcome to all of our listeners tonight, and also big welcome to our panelists who have agreed to join us and be a part of the session. And for those who aren't sure, part 1 did go into a lot of details in regards to the incident that happened with Child Q and the report that followed, but we still thought it was important to give just a brief overview on what actually happened, just to give some context for the discussion that we'll be having tonight. So, back in 2020, Child Q, who's a Black female student who goes to secondary school, she was strip searched by female police officers from the Metropolitan Police Service. The search, which involved exposure of her private parts while she was menstruating, happened and took place without consenting adults in there with her. Then after that, she wasn't able to go to the bathroom to clean up herself. She was sent back in to try to continue to sit her exams. So that is basically a short overview of the Child Q incident, which we'll be discussing tonight with our panelists. I'll hand over to Dwayne. I'm Rachel McCoy, and I'll be handing over to Dwayne McCoy.
Amen. No, thank you. First of all, our thoughts and prayers go out to Child Q and the families. It really has impacted, and it is really, really deeply saddened us as well. As a parent of a young girl that's growing up obviously in ages, it's really, really impacted us. So we first want to really give our prayers and our thoughts to the family. This edition really is about the collaboration, about the church, about the community, about the practitioners, and about various organizations getting together really on a platform really to voice our concerns. And we hope that there's the Met, we hope Scotland Yard, we hope there's government officials sort of watching as well, because these voices need to be heard. And we wanted today deliver just a small sample size of various youth and various youth workers' perspective on the situation and issues with Child Q. So we don't want to waste no time, because we've got loads of questions, we've got loads of discussions that we want to take place, and we don't want to lose no time with that. So I'm just going to hand over to our first guest, in Randisha, to just give her views and her points and who she is.
Hi, good night. Hi, good day. Hi, my name is Anisha Maynard. I am a youth leader in Niche's Outreach Center. I currently work in retail, and if not retail, part-time I study to become a forensic scientist. I don't really have much to say about me, because I'm really a basic person. I stay at home and I've heard about Child Q from Rachel and Dwayne, and they put me onto this, and they just wanted me to give my views. And I'm glad to be here. But enough about me. I hand over to Matthew.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Matthew Popo. I am the CEO and founder of an organization called We Think. We Think is an organization that aims to educate, teach, and upskill youth workers and youth practitioners all over the city, and hopefully at some point all over the country. My history in youth work started about 12 years ago, working in community sport, and from then I've gone on to community mentorship programs, education, social care, currently working as a pastoral leader, middle leader in secondary education. But more importantly, my heart is pretty much set in how do I get my message across to other practitioners who are interested in working with young people effectively, relevantly, and fruitfully, and how do we share all the skills that each and every one of us have, so that best practice is used in all of our different spaces and environments. It's very important to me that we understand that youth work isn't about one person or one group. It's about how groups can come together, work together with experience and best practice to best serve young people. So that's me in a nutshell. Once again, I am the proud founder and CEO of We Think, and I'm also the principal of a smaller organisation called Symphony Schools, where we provide GCSE education for young Black boys in Year 11. We support them in English and maths and their social development to make sure that they are ready for the world going forward. So that's me in a nutshell, and I will hand you over now to Pastor David White.
Thanks, Matthew. Hi, everyone. Good evening. So my name is David White. So I'm a pastor and an ordained minister at the Wesleyan Holiness Church. So currently my role is youth district leader. So my focus is on engaging with young people, not just within our churches, but within our communities. I've been doing that for 2.5 years now, full time. Prior to that, my background is in secondary education. So I was working in secondary schools, taught humanities, and also a pastoral lead. And so I'm really passionate about, I suppose, injustice, social action. And this issue in regards to child Q has really aggrieved me. And so I'm just really grateful for Rachel and for Dwayne for inviting me so that we can really get to grips and continue this conversation, this important conversation. And for those who are watching, especially those in positions of influence and power within police, within government, it's really important, as Matthew said, that you really hear the voices of groups of people who not only work with young people and support young people, but organizations who support those who do that as well. And to really take seriously the things that we feel and the things that we've been saying for many years. And it's come to a point now where we can't just continue to talk, and we see all the recommendations and all the reports. But now it's really time for strategic action and not just smooth words or the next person that's coming in. We really want to see action and really want to see accountability at the highest level for those involved as well. So that's me. So I'm just going to hand over to Lisa.
Hello, I am Lisa Sam. I'm a wife and a mother of 2 girls. I currently hold a BA Honours degree in education, and I have experience within early years education, special educational needs, social services, and youth work. In all my roles, I have worked with children, young people, and families, and I have assisted individuals in court, working on a variety of cases ranging from neglect to sexual, physical, and emotional abuse. My experience has involved working with professionals across various sectors, including healthcare, the police, and probation services. Currently, in my secular role, I work as a safeguarding officer in a secondary school. I am a member of the Church of God of Prophecy in Doncaster, where I also take on the role as a safeguarding lead, in addition to the children's and youth ministries. I'm also one of the national trustees for Church of God of Prophecy, where my leading role is also safeguarding. Going back to what I said about my safeguarding role in the secondary school, as a Black woman, I also see it important to be a representative for those in the Black community, Black students or Black and minority ethnic groups. So to be on this panel is very important to me. And I just want to thank you for inviting me here. I will now pass over to the host. Thank you.
Amen. And thank you all for agreeing to come on this platform. Like I said, it's quite an emotional subject, so please bear with me if I don't smile too much, even though I've been instructed to, but it's very difficult to smile on this subject, in all honesty. First, I just want to lastly just give a quick sort of greetings also to our Bishop Tedroy, Minister Aoni, and also Minister Joyce for the opportunity for us to really voice our concerns on this platform. So those that are in the comments, those that are watching online, please also put your comments. Please get involved in this, because it's not just the people that you see online, but it's the people on YouTube and Zoom and Facebook. If you're watching any of those, please get involved, because we want to hear your viewpoints, and we want to take these viewpoints to those people in power, in influence, and place these things in front of them so that they can see the concerns, see some of the actions, see some of the suggestions to help move forward.
And in preparation for coming on today, we thought it was important to try and capture as many different voices as we could, or the voices of as many people as we could. So prior to today's panel session, we actually put out a questionnaire. And the idea of the questionnaire is to try and collect as many young people's and young adults' voices as we possibly could, so that as we have our session today and have our discussion today, we were able to also hear authentic voices from young people and see what they feel about it. So if you go over to the slides, and we can have a look at what some of the things that were said. So the questionnaire was sent out. We had 36 responses for the questionnaire. And the first question, which is just over on slide 2, was finding out which age group people fit into. And we can see the majority of the young people, the majority of the people on our chart come into the young adults category, which is fine. In blue, we see the below 16. So we do have some voices, but it is mainly young adults who have voiced their opinions for this session, which is the 16 to 34 mark. And over on the next slide, and one of the questions that I thought was really important to ask is, have the police been called into your school during your time there? And the question was asked purposely. It's not, is there a police presence? Because we know that, especially in Birmingham, because I can only speak about my own experience, is that we have had police officers in school that are kind of police support. So they're more the friendly face of the police that are meant to help support being in school. Whereas that's not the question that I wanted to know. I wanted to know, at any specific time, have the police been called into your school for an incident? So we see that it's 55.9% said yes, which I think is quite shocking since it's just a secondary school. And knowing that, I know that Lisa will be able to touch on safeguarding and the idea of at what level does the police get called into a secondary school. But I still thought it was quite an interesting thing to collect the information. I've said over half of the people asked have had and have seen the police come to the school for some reason. So over onto the next slide, I asked, has anyone you know or has someone you know been searched by the police in school? And it was 80.6% said no, which was quite reassuring, to be honest. But out of those, there were 7 people that said yes. And considering it only went out to 36 people, 7 of those people said yes, they know someone directly who has been searched by the police within a school. So from that, we can see that it's not an isolated incident. We know there are charities out there who are campaigning and trying to let their voices be heard, so we can see that what happened to Child Q and the idea of the search that took place, not to the level of a strip search, but the idea of a search taking place in a school, it's not an alienated subject, it's something that actually does happen. So I thought that was quite interesting. And if we go over to the next slide, the question was asked, how do you feel about Child Q being strip searched on her own and then being sent back to an exam? So this was one where I wanted to collect not just quantitative data, but qualitative to see, well, what is it that people feel? How are people feeling about this? And on the next slide, it shows. So some of the comments that were raised were that it's appalling. The word disgusting came up about 12 times. So about 12 people all had the same phrase, the same word, which was disgusting, that came up as part of how they felt about Child Q. The idea that she was strip searched and then sent back into the exams as though nothing happened, although it's just something that's routine and that's it. There was no care put into the situation that took place. One of the comments that, I mean, when I read back and I was like, oh wow, one of the questions said it's premeditated sexual assault by paedophiles in disguise. I thought that's strong. So yeah, one of the comments I'd like to pick up, and then we're just gonna open up for a debate. So so one of the comments is, it's disgraceful. I work with secondary school children. I also blame the teachers. They should have never let the pupil alone and unattended at her age. They are not safeguarding her. No search should have happened. It shows a lack of care towards Black women and also children. She will be traumatized for her life, what they did to her and what the school allowed to happen. So we just want to open up for a panel discussion. It's just based on the question of how do you feel about Child Q. You can either pick up on the comments that were made or even just share your own views. So if we start with David, because I think David wants to speak.
Yeah, thank you. It's a hard one, to be fair. When I read the safeguarding review, I was just thinking, what in the world has gone on here? When you think, now as a teacher and anyone in pastoral support, you have to really ask some questions like, why the need for you to call the police? What's the reason for that? So clearly they wasn't satisfied with the initial search and they still felt that she had some. So to go to that length, the teachers have to be held accountable. have to without a shadow of a doubt, and to not also call parents or to notify them beforehand. I mean, it's just it's the level of disgust and disgrace in how they've dealt with her, and then also the fact that the police, 2 officers were called first, male and female, and then another 2 were called. So in order that there were 2 females there in the room, you have to ask yourself the question: why was the school? Why did the school feel comfortable to do so, and why did it take so long once the report was released that the school has done anything about it?
No, I agree, definitely. The idea that it took place in 2020, it's only now that it's public, now we're seeing things happen. Lisa?
Yeah, yeah. Disgusting is the right word. I was very shocked when I heard about the case. But the one thing for me is parental responsibility. You know, did that just go out of the window? I've been involved in incidents whereby I've been deemed as the appropriate adult. And let me first tell you, the parents are aware from the very beginning. If it's not the police that's informed them, they've informed the school that this is likely to happen, the police are likely to come, and they have given their permission for us to be the ones to be the appropriate adult. So what happens is, we're aware of the situation. Is the young person aware of what's going to happen? First of all, in the incident of child Q, that shouldn't have happened. It wasn't necessary. If there's concerns or worries that a child might have had something on their persons, the school have the ability to do an appropriate search in twos, make sure that there's another person with you, explaining the reasons why, and also there's no touching of the body. So, for example, you will ensure that they are the ones to lead by emptying their bags, emptying their blazer pockets. If the young person isn't going to cooperate and you have concerns, the parents are informed and the parents are asked to come and collect the children. There was no need for that to go so far. And furthermore, like I said, where were the parents in all this? So if you've got worries about it to the point that you've got to involve the police, parental responsibility should not have been ignored. Should not have been ignored.
Well, that's powerful. That's powerful. I mean, Matthew, someone that works in the community, in the heart of it, with the particular young people, when you heard about this, really, and having spoke to you, what's your sort of thoughts on this?
I was sent this report late one evening. I actually received it from 4 different people within half an hour because they wanted my opinion on this report. Now, considering that this document is 36 pages long, people must have decided that they really wanted me to read this document that night, because for 4 people to send it to me and think I'm genuinely going to read 36 pages before I go to sleep and have an opinion. But I did. I read 36 pages. Not only did I read 36 pages, I read it 3 times. I read it 3 times, and I even sat down with my wife and I said to her, can you imagine? And I told her parts of the report that I'd read, because at the time she hadn't read it. I was just telling her all these things that I'd read. And I was disgusted, but I was disgusted for a number of reasons. So David touched on a point already, which is what made the school comfortable enough to call the police. Lisa's also made a point which suggests, where is the parental responsibility? The reason why schools feel comfortable enough to call the police is because schools these days, in my opinion, are failing daily to build appropriate relationships with young people in the communities. And because they fail to build these relationships, they don't feel like sometimes these children are even people. They're just students. They're just people who walk through the school gate to, at the end of year 11, will give them data. And it's very easy to treat people this way when you don't see them as human. You only see them as students, people who are going to provide data for your academic institution. So I was furious when I saw how this young lady had been treated. And then we always say to the students, and parents say to students all the time, when you go to school, those teachers are your parents. You must listen to those teachers. So sometimes parents don't even realize they're giving their children to people who don't even care about them in a way that they're supposed to. They're giving their children to people who actually, quite frankly, some of them couldn't care less whether these children sink or swim. But we're telling these children, when you go to school, these people are your parents. So then these children look at us like we're supposed to keep them safe. And we're the ones giving them, or we're putting them in harm's way. So there's so many, there's levels to the harm that this school has caused to this young lady. And when I read the document, I won't lie, I'm not a crying person, but I was moved nearly to tears thinking about a child who had been taken into a room, had been criminalized, had been adultified, had been made to remove her clothing. After removing her clothing, then told to go back to your exam, not go to the toilet, not sit down for a second with a member of staff who can speak her through. Just go back to your exam and carry on like nothing happened. Her parents weren't told. I think from reading the report, the child went home and told her parents what happened before the school had contacted the parent to tell them what happened. This is a 15-year-old child that was made to be treated as if she was Pablo Escobar. If you can't find drugs in a child's bag, in a blazer, in a trousers or a skirt, in any kind of luggage she's carrying or pockets, how much cannabis, if she had any, which she didn't, how much cannabis did you reckon this child had that you thought it was appropriate to strip search her, looking for it? There's levels to the disrespect, and I'm telling you now, it's mentioned at least 4 times in the report that race played a heavy part in why she was treated this way. The adultification of young black children played a part in why she was treated this way. And the moment I read it, the first thing I said was, if this was a middle-class white child in a middle-class white area, they would have never done this to this child. It's the first thing I said reading this report, because she wasn't safeguarded, she wasn't looked after, and there was zero aftercare. We talk about the fact that this happened in 2020 and we're talking about it in 2022. It's because if they could have kept it quiet and no one would have said anything, we wouldn't even be talking about it in 2022.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And Randisha, yourself being a young black female, I think you left school a couple of years ago. I really want to get, see your thoughts on it really, and see how you feel, when you heard about the child queue situation.
Well, Dwayne, not only me being a black young lady, but being in school, I did witness a lot of police searching. Well, that was mainly boys. Girls wasn't really stripped or searched in any manner because the boys were more disgusting. They didn't have any behavior, right? So hearing this, it broke my heart because I am really interested in law enforcement and the armed forces. I actually wanted to take up a career in it. And it broke my heart to say, wow, one of what I wanted to become, it really broke me. It broke me to hear that the law enforcement did this to a 15-year-old. A 15-year-old who was by herself in a classroom writing an exam. To me, if it was that serious, why did they let her even start the exam? If you smelled marijuana on her so strong, why did you let her start the exam? Why didn't you just say, you know what, you're not writing it, we stop you, let the search begin. But they let her go into the room, sit down, already get comfortable, start to write her exam, and they pull her out to search her, strip her down to nothing. She was on her cycle, and they even stripped her even more. When I first heard it, I actually thought it was 2 male officers. I was saying, okay, I could see why men would do this, But then when I heard it's female, I was like, female officers actually saw her condition and still went even further. Like, do they not know how this would feel? You get? Would you not know the condition that she's in? You see what state she's in, and you still went even further. That someone's kid, and to say that the teacher stood outside the door and know that they're strip searching her in there without a parent, it is bamboozling. A police cannot investigate a 15-year-old unless a parent is present. They can't ask any question because they're not old enough. But to actually, you even went further. You went further than a criminal. They actually do that when you're going into jail. She's not a criminal. if you smell marijuana, which is experienced every day here in England. You jump on a coach, you smell marijuana. You walk on the street, you smell marijuana. It's not like as prevalent as bad as they made it seem. But they went too far to me. To me, it was.
Yeah, no, I feel that. No, definitely. And I think even on slide 7, on the questionnaire, we put out, would this happen again, basically? And I think it's correct. 88.9% said yes. So if we know it's going to happen again, we're sitting there discussing it. It's happened previously. What what needs to happen? Because that's not right, is it? We can't be seriously sitting here, almost waiting for it to happen again. And that's what the sample that we put out online. 88.9% said it will happen again. Sort of, what's your thoughts really on that?
So what's vexing? And I've just got to be real. So even from your sample, so the question before was, how many people knew someone that had got searched? Out of 36, and 20%, near enough 20% said they knew someone. So already that shows you that there's some kind of normality in that. And Matthew already said there is no way that if you was to do this sample with a white middle class group, there is no way that they would know, at least out of a small sample like that they would know somebody. I don't believe they would know someone that's been searched in school. But then here's the thing, as you said, they expect it to happen. The sample group expect it. We expect this to happen. And then this is where it becomes infuriating, because we have report after report after report.
Yeah.
We have the McPherson report back in the day after Stephen Lutz. Found it, the police were institutional racist. We have the Lammy report. Whole heap of things that it says, it highlights. So every year we see the youth justice criminal stats that highlights the disparity of black British boys, stop and search, custodial sentencing, and everything else. We see this happening every year. And then what's frustrating is there seems to be a culture. There's an apparent culture of what's happening. And that's part of the problem, that we've normalized this and this culture of, well, we just wait. Or does it have to be one of our children before we really want to stand up and do something?
No, definitely. So go ahead, Lisa. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, I'm gonna say I totally agree with that. When I heard this, all that came to me was yet again, and it really hurt me as a mother, not just as a safeguarding officer, but as a mother of 2 girls, yet again. And yes, there are policies and procedures put in place, but I feel sometimes it's like it's just a tick box exercise, and there needs to be action now. And as I hear that Child Q had actually stated that, she didn't even say that she wanted revenge. She said she just wants for this not to happen again. And it shouldn't happen again. It shouldn't have happened in the first place. But we need to stop where we're needing to have these conversations. It shouldn't be happening. There are policies and procedures in place in these organisations. And all I can say is either in some of the organisations it's very slack, or you've got individuals, as proven from this case, that think that they're above the law and are ignoring these policies and procedures because this shouldn't have happened. I know in the school that I'm in, this couldn't have happened. The moment we know that an official is coming in, like I said, the parent knows, we check the young person. I will be the one, if I'm the one that's supporting them in any interview whatsoever, I'm the one that will go and collect them before the official even steps through those doors. Receptionists are aware of the appointment. They can't get through the doors until I go down to greet them and I am with the young person. And what's hurt me most as well is when we're in this day and age and we're thinking about mental health as well, and especially within the Black community, and what's this done to the young person? And basically it was abuse on the officer's side, let's call it what it is, abuse. And then from the school, negligence.
Yes.
Where were the safeguarding officer? How was this allowed to happen? I've been sat in interviews, and then after that, I'm checking the young person about their safe space. Where are you at now? How are you feeling? it wasn't a search, but still it was traumatic for them because of what had happened. So I want to check, what's your safe space? I don't need to go into too much with them because they've had an ordeal already, but what's your safe space? Let them know what support is available in the school. And then checking in with the parents again to say, okay, then it's happened, and then echo to them what support is offered for the young person. Step by step, that young person is supported. This poor girl, you know, and I say again on the race incident, I always say I'm there as a representative. I've said to my managers, I'm not just a safeguarding officer, I'm a representative for the Black community, for these Black students, and they know where I am and they come to me with incidents. You know, who do they have to where they can go to?
Yeah.
And it's again, we shouldn't be coming at this stage again. It shouldn't be happening again.
Yeah, no, definitely. No, definitely. It sometimes feels as though, you know, when it happens again, oh, it's happened again. Oh, it's typical. This is just what we have to accept. And really and truly, we don't address, we don't speak about it. And that's why, in one way, I'm glad that this platform's on today, because it's, you know, sometimes we speak about one thing, and as David mentioned and Lisa mentioned, that we speak about one thing and then something else pops up next week, and then we divert all our attention over to that new incident, and then this becomes in the background, sort of, you know, and just you know, feathers away basically. So yeah, it's yeah, okay, yeah, but no, definitely. I guess for sort of yourself, Matthew, from a action point of view, you know, we're sitting there saying this is going to happen again and again and again. We're basically saying that we're going to be doing this show again. We're basically saying that we're going to be writing to the Met Police again. We're basically saying that we're going to be going through the same process again, because the police will do some type of injustice to a Black young person. What needs to sort of happen really, really at the moment, you know?
I think the going through our agenda, even our conversation before today, the word that you said to me was prevention. What we have to understand in this world now is we've moved away from eradication as the word we're looking for, and unfortunately we're in a time where the word we have to focus on is reduction. You see, before you can eradicate, you must reduce. And until we see less of these incidents happening, we're not placed to talk about how this will ever end. Because we keep talking about how things end and then they don't end. Sometimes they even increase. So when we look at how we put preventative measures in place, let's make something very clear. From the get-go, the aim is reduction. So there's two ways I look at this, and there's two ways I attack this with my young people and the families that I work with, because there's a conversation to be had with young people and there's a conversation to be had with their parents or their guardians. So let's start with the guardians. One of my favorite scriptures is, my people are destroyed through their lack of knowledge. And it's no different to the world. You know, working in school in the communities, it scares me how much parents don't know about school policy and procedure. It scares me how much parents don't know about their rights as parents and how they can hold schools to task. It worries me deeply when I see parents coming into school asking for things or begging for things from schools that schools should have been given freely, and acting as if the school's done them a favour, when really you're entitled to all of these things anyway, regardless. How on earth are you able to protect your children if you don't even know what you're entitled to, what your rights are, how your children should have been looked after and taught, how your children should have been safeguarded? Parents, I'm not bashing any parent, because we know parenting is hard work. We know guardianship over children is hard work, but we've got to be more clued up on what's going on in and around our children. We have to be. When your child goes to secondary school and they start sending you all of this paperwork they ask you to sign, all these policies and procedures that they ask you to sign, are you reading all the stuff that you sign? When you give all these permissions for schools to do all these things with your children, are you truly reading all the permissions that you're giving the school rights to do with your children? Are you reading all these policies and procedures? Because you sign them. And what a lot of schools do now is once you sign in year 7, they're signed away till year 11. They don't do it every single year, so you get a chance to read it from year 7 and year 8, 9, 10, 11, or in primary school when you go in reception, you do it you sign it when they enter the building, and that document sits on your child's file for the whole time they're part of that institution. I've got parents who have come into school and said, "Oh, I saw my child's face in a brochure for the school. I didn't give permission for that." I said, "Yes, you did." When you sign that photo policy saying that school can use stock images of your children to go on all of their literature and materials when they came in year 7, because you were so excited about getting them into secondary school, you didn't pay attention to the fact that we can use all these pictures however we like. You have to make sure that you know what you're signing and the policies and procedures of what's going on. Parents, you also need to make sure that you understand the state of the communities that your schools are in. You get some schools in nicer areas, you get some schools in rougher areas. You get every community has different issues that schools are having to deal with, and parents also have to pay attention to. I currently work in a school where, unfortunately, outside of school, there's in the surrounding communities, there's been high levels of violence. Therefore, as a school, we have to pay attention to that level of violence. We have to act accordingly when we're in school. So parents will know through our policies and procedures there might be random searches to make sure children aren't bringing anything to school that they shouldn't have. But it doesn't go any further than, right, can you open your bag and let me see what's in there? Can you empty your blazer pockets in your school shop? But the parents know all of these things are happening. And if the parents don't know they're happening, they have a right to ask. Is there a reason why when my child went to form this morning, their whole form were told to empty their bags and empty their blazer pockets? Yes, miss. Yes, mom. Yes, dad. This is the reason why we do it. You've got to start holding these schools to task. I'll tell you something. There are some parents in every school that some schools won't touch and they won't go anywhere near. And do you know why they won't touch them? Because they know those parents are so clued up, they can't afford to make a mistake. Because that parent will make noise. And they don't want those parents to make noise. And I'm not saying to parents to go out there and start making noise and walk around with big banners and placards outside of schools and making a scene. But you have to make sure that these schools know my child isn't to be messed with. I said my child to your place to learn, not for you to do as you please. My child is not to be messed with. I know the policy, I know procedure. I know everything the local authority tell me I can or I can't do. I love talking to parents who tell me what they can and can't do, because I know what they can and can't do, and I can tell them if they're right or they're wrong. I love it when parents come in ready for me when we have a meeting, because it shows I'm talking to someone who's really about the forward progression and movement of their child. So I love that. I absolutely love it. Parents and guardians, we have to make sure that we're clued up as to the situations that we're sending our children into. Pay attention to trends within your area in regards to criminal justice, in regards to inequalities, in regards to current behaviours of the young people, because if that also then leaks into school, which it does, because the local authorities and the government now are now seeing schools as central hubs because children spend most of their time there, then you have to know why schools are doing certain things. If you don't know, that's not on the school to send out you out literature to literature. You have to go and do the reading yourself. Every single time I see something pop up on my email from my daughter's school, I'm reading it and then I'm rereading it. And she'll come home from school and I'm asking her a question. So, Mary, I got a letter from your school today, and it said such and such. What does this mean? And I'll see how much she understands about the policies and procedures of the school she goes to. Parents, we have to know, because we are undone through our lack of knowledge of what these people can and can't do with our children. That's just the parents. Then we look at the children. How often are parents having conversations with children about their social rights and justice? How often are parents talking to children about how they conduct themselves, speech, tonality, body language, how we respond, how we articulate our points, control over our moods, tempers, emotions? How often are we having these conversations with our children? Because at the end of the day, as Black children, for example, we're naturally seen as loud and aggressive. When sometimes all we do is trying to make a point. But are we teaching our children how to make their points in a way where even if they do raise their voice slightly, they articulate themselves in a way whereby they have to be listened to? The children know their rights in regards to criminal justice. A lot of work I do is around educating young people on stop and search and their rights within stop and search. You know, some young people still believe that they can only be stopped and searched on reasonable ground. And then I say to them, well, if the police stop and search you and say, right, under Section 60 of PACE, we're going to now stop and search you. We don't need any kind of causality or any kind of reason to do so. We just believe in the area all these things are happening, and we're just going to pick you off one by one and search you whether you like it or not. Do you know that you could ask a police officer for their ID, what police station they come from, why are you stopping me, ask them for their badge numbers. You can record it and tell the police you're doing it. Tell the police, right, I'm not going to turn on a recording device. I'm going to do this for my own protection. The children know that until they're 18 years old, they are, if they want to be, limited to what they want to say to the police until they have reasonable or appropriate adult or legal advice with them and around them whenever they're talking to the police. You know what? Police know that half the time they shouldn't even be talking to children a certain way, but they do it knowing the children don't have a clue, and neither do their parents. So when you've got this young lady going into school now, and she's been called into a room and led there, let me be very clear, she was led there by members of staff from that school, and then walked into a room, and they say they asked her if she was okay. How can you ask a 15-year-old child if she's okay being searched by two strangers? To be clear, police officers, whether in a uniform or not, to any young people who don't know them, they're strangers. Police officers commit crimes too. Police officers step over the line. Police officers act out of duty and completely off-key. But because they wear a uniform, you can hand over this child, you're supposed to look after her and go, but we asked her if she was comfortable and she said yes. What's she supposed to say? She probably believes she had no choice. If she wanted, a lot of children, they believe that a lot of it is about de-escalation and getting away from trouble. What if that young lady believes, right, if I do all this now, if they search me and they find I've got nothing, then they'll just leave me alone. I won't get in trouble, they'll just leave me alone. Goes home and casually tells her mom about what happened at school today, not even realising how much she'd been violated that day, because none of her appropriate adults had spoke to her about what she should or she shouldn't do, say, and what she should or she shouldn't accept from people in uniform. I tell children all the time when I'm at school, I can only respond to what you do. If I ever do anything that makes you feel uncomfortable, speak up and tell me, or I'd even allow you to remove yourself from the situation. I'm a person that when young people get upset with me for whatever reason or situation, if they walk off from me, I let them go. I don't chase them and run them down and lord my authority over young people. They'll come back eventually and we'll have the conversation. But a lot of people are in a position right now where because you've got that position of authority and power over young people, you abuse it. And then we have children who don't even know that they're being abused until after the fact. And then they have to process the fact that they've been abused without any aftercare. If we look at prevention for young people and prevention for families going forward, because it has to be about reduction, we need to teach our children what they are allowed to do within legal right, especially when talking to adults and people in uniform, and the police especially, because the police have this wonderful way of making people believe they can just do as they please, and they're doing it within the arms of the law. Well, if the children know their rights and they know the law, they'll know that the police are working out of pocket. They know that they're working out of bounds. Lisa spoke on a number of occasions how she works with the police who come into her school. Police can't talk to young people who come into my school without giving me an overview first. Yeah. The amount of times that police have just popped up at my school and said, we're here to talk to this young person. And the officer called me and say, oh, sir, one of your children are about to be interviewed. But I said, no, they're not. I'm coming to the office and I want to talk to the police first about why they're here. Then I'm going to call that child's parent and say, did you know that the police were going to come into school today to speak to your child? And the reasons why they've given is the A, B, and C. Wow, you didn't know, great. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to those police and say, right, the parent didn't know. I don't feel comfortable with this carrying on. I'm not going to be the child's appropriate adult, because if the child's parent and guardian has no idea why you're here, then Lord knows I'm not going to act as though I'm that child's parent or guardian. So you have to leave and come back at another time once we've done this properly. And I promise you, police won't argue with you. They'll just go. And they'll go because they know they have no power to argue it. But it's our job as practitioners to make sure that we're protecting young people and doing all these things in the first place. Because if we're not, We are as culpable as the police, as if you're watching this happen, if you're watching another member of staff put these children into situations and you say nothing, you are as culpable as a member of staff walking this child to be strip searched, who, by the way, was strip searched by yet two female officers who arguably, once again, were strangers, strong-armed her to make her believe she had no choice but doing it, knew she was menstruating, asked her to remove her sanitary towel. I ask you again, if you couldn't find any cannabis on this child, on her person, how much cannabis would she have hidden behind a sanitary towel? It's unnecessary, and we as practitioners have to make sure that we're protecting these children. I said something the other day on my social media. At the very least, we need to protect the young people that we serve. When we go to work, we are in service. Our job, we're in service. It's our job to protect the young people we serve. So the game right now is not eradication. The game is reduction, and we reduce it by knowing our rights, by knowing what can and can't happen, teaching our young people what can and can't happen, and having practitioners who are really about their job, about protecting young people at all times. Because I think we're forgetting that safeguarding is a massive part of what we do in any space, whether it be education, social care, community, sports, performing arts. Safeguarding is a massive part of what we do, because if the children aren't safe, we're failing them. Simple as. If the children are not safe, we are failing them. The game isn't how do we stop this from happening ever again. The game is how do we reduce the numbers, because children, right, this will happen again. Well, how do we make sure that when it does happen again, there's enough of us who know enough to put all of these people to task and we reduce the numbers? It's all about reduction.
Wow. So many nuggets there, Matthew. Wow. Wow. I'm going to hand straight over to Lisa because I can see your hand was up, Lisa. Wow.
Yeah, thank you. And Matthew made a valid point there, and that was my concern in the case, is that there were people there in the school that obviously saw the police in their rightful actions just because they were in uniform. And as I echoed before, that couldn't have happened in mine. Like I says, the parents are aware. The parents are aware, and they're the ones that lead and say they're happy for us to be the appropriate adult. If not, they can come down themselves. And to go back on what Matthew was saying, yes, we know the summary of what's happened. And does the young person know what's happening? And that's coming from the parents as well. Yes, they know. And again, we take the lead all the way. So as a safeguarding, we're the ones that are conducting. They're not just coming in and taking over or taking control. We're there to make sure that things are done appropriately. And yeah, there were no excuse, regardless of how you want to look at it. There was no excuse, because those within the schools, the safeguarding, the head teacher, as a safeguarding officers, the seniors above me, delegated safeguarding leads, none of them were aware. No, there needs to be a review of their roles and responsibilities. Well, like I said, there are situations there are policies in place, and basically it was ignored, because that should have never have happened. Should have never have happened.
Absolutely. You can see the multiple failings really upon this. And I was thinking whilst you both were speaking, actually, a young person gets into that situation, there is automatically this fear with police from, things like this, basically. Our first altercation, our first how we want to put it with the police is something negative. So when an officer comes into a school or comes in, or is in a community and does a search like this, it one way you kind of you're sort of not interested sometimes in your rights, because you know exactly what's going to happen. You know that you're going to be forced into really obligating to doing whatever the officer is telling you to do. So really, in that situation, again, probably for David and probably Randisha, if we feel this way with the police in general, when they come to do it again, and again, and the frustration that we have with them, within our families, which is sometimes poured down.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's a reaction, if that makes sense, and sometimes it ends in, a worse situation. Could be jailed, could be fined, could be something like that. How do we really get to a point where, even knowing our rights, that we're able to handle ourselves really and have that discussions with a police officer?
So I think what Matthew has said is proper gold, and then it really gets me thinking, in a sense of it made the obvious point that we're not going to completely get rid of stop and search and all the issues around that. So how can we prevent it? But then, me being both pessimistic and optimistic, my pessimism is, we know this is not going to happen in schools. We know that right across the board, schools are not going to start advocating and teaching children and parents their rights and stop and search. So my optimism now is for churches. How can we then create an initiative, or kind of right across the board in our churches, that we are going to put on, kind of like back in the day when it was supplementary Saturday schools, where the needs of the black kids weren't being met, where they were being told that they were slow, that they were this and they were that. But now, today, 21st century, the needs are different. The issues are different now. So now they're being targeted. So now, if we're going to prevent this, or we're going to reduce it, why can our churches now say, right, we're going to have an initiative, we are now going to put on, for our communities, for our young people separately, and our parents, whether that's a program over a certain amount of months, but we continually provide an education, an initiative where young people can come into our church spaces, or our churches go into schools or into the community and put on initiatives where we're going to train them, we're going to teach them about their rights, and parents as well. I really do think that churches, because this is an issue that clearly affects our community, so now we really have to be intentional and take seriously what Matthew is saying, and then be like, okay, how are we going to do this? I don't believe schools are going to do it, personally. So then this is where the church has to galvanize and be like, right, these are the needs in our community. We've seen stop and search. The figures aren't reducing. If anything, it keeps increasing. It's the same story year after year. So then what are we then doing about it? We keep banging on 10 Downing Street. We keep writing letters. We keep telling our MPs, but yet we're still expecting different results. Okay then, as churches, let's put on an initiative for our communities. Whether they're Christian or not, we're going to put it on, because this is what's affecting our community, and allowing them to come in and to be taught about their rights, and doing the same for parents and family. So I'm challenging us here. I'm challenging black-led churches, black majority churches, diverse churches, multicultural churches, churches that are placed that have diverse communities and where people are most affected by this. So Matthew, you got a program to draw up. You got
No
I'm
pressure.
sure. I'm sure.
Amen. And I'm writing it down as well. So when you see my head turning, I'm writing down these notes as well, because I believe this is part of the action part that we want to see. Lisa, I did see your hand up.
Yeah, David, I like that idea. But can I also echo, and going back to my role as well, there's things that I'm putting out in my school. And the moment that this came out, there was an email going around, and I'm all just not, like I said, not just the tick box, but the action. And can I, as you talk about a challenge, I like to challenge those from the Black community who are working in schools. I've been in so many schools from primary to secondary, and I have this feeling that sometimes there's a shyness. I am not shy. The Black students, and it's the minority for where I am, but they know who I am. I make sure that they know who I am. I make sure that there are things put in place on a wider scale, not just for Black History Month, but then everybody in that school is aware of what we are about, and they love that. So I want to also challenge that. Yes, David, that's a great idea. and I think we should move forward with that idea as a church. But also, you as an individual, as Black teachers, whatever role you have within the schools, what are you doing? What are you doing to say, you know, I'm standing up, I'm speaking out on behalf of this community? So that's a challenge also. Don't be afraid, you know, because a lot of the times the students, I had somewhat unkindly make some positive comments in regards to who I am and what I do. And that was nice. I humbly accept that. But that's what I aim to do. I aim to be a representative, not just to stand there, not to be that body, but in what I implement, the activities that I implement to support not just the students overall, but like I says, the minority, so to speak. So I just want to really challenge, you know, any Black practitioners that are out there. Don't be afraid. Give your ideas to your seniors, and not just giving you ideas as a tick box. Make sure it's actioned. Because sometimes what the schools, they like you to what's the saying, to write the music, but they don't want to sing. Okay, they want you to write the notes for the song sheets, but they don't want to sing to the same music. But you put the ideas forward and you make sure those ideas are implemented. So I challenge you as Black practitioners to, not just because of this, but use this as a platform, use it as a case study. Get the community officers in and challenge them. Have those conversations. Don't be afraid. Like I said, I'm very confident in my role, and like I said, as a Black woman within that field, and I do make sure I do so. So go forth and do that, because the students are relying on you. And work with the families as well. If it's not the students and the families know who I am, and they know that I'm there, you know, to support their students. So speak up and encourage them also to speak up as well. Even if you have to support them in assemblies that have their say about diversity, even if it's the same platform that we're doing here, that can be led in the schools or in certain sessions. But as a Black member, as a practitioner, speak out. Don't just be there and think, oh, because I'm a Black person within the school, that's enough. Use your gift, use your voice. Thank you.
Absolutely powerful. That's powerful. I love that one, Lisa. No, thank you for that. I mean, obviously, Matthew, you got to leave a bit early today. So, I mean, you know, let's just say we've got the government officials here watching. You got the Met Police, you got Scotland Yard, you got all these people watching. Now, what would you say to them now, really, as you know, in regards to the Justice for Child Q? What would you say to them if they were watching?
The issue we have with Child Q. Sorry, the issue we have with Child Q is bigger than the search itself, because it all comes back to the bigger problem we have of criminal profiling and what criminals look like in this world. The reason why Child Q the reason why that young lady can be treated the way she is because she fits a criminal profile anyway. She probably comes from the wrong household, from the wrong background, from the wrong community. She had the wrong smell. She had the wrong look. And that led her to be where she is now. Before we can really have a conversation about this not happening to another child again, we have to look into the way that the police, the Met Police, any police force all over this country profile what a criminal looks like, profile where the background of where these children come from. And then, more importantly, even if these children are actually undertaking criminal behaviour, which she wasn't, how do we treat these young people who are involved in criminal behaviour? Because if we really want to create stronger communities of young people who can one day become productive civilians, treating them like they're less than human beings isn't the way to do it. So the bigger issue around this whole Child Q and what happens to this young lady is more about how the police criminally profile our young people. Our parents looking, I'm horrible for it sometimes because I know how I've grown up and the things that I've done and come through. You know, my children can't leave the house looking a certain way because I don't need them attracting certain attention, rightly or wrongly, but I know the world that we live in. Are we teaching our children, once again, how to speak to people? What are their articulation skills? Are we teaching our young people about the company they keep? Or once again, are we paying attention to the communities that we're raising our children in? Because it's just so important that we truly understand the environments that these children are growing in. Parents, please, please, please keep your children close and speak to your children as much as you can. Speak to them about everything and anything that could be from as simple as how was your day to going into Black history, going into cultural history, going into faith, whatever it may be. And children, any young person listening to this, if you ever have a moment where you feel like something's not quite right and you're struggling with something, go and talk to a parent, go and talk to an aunt, an uncle, an older family member who just might know something a bit more than you do, because actually there is so much that we can all learn from each other. And I think as a community, Black people, we don't talk enough. We talk when we're angry, we talk when we're upset, but are we talking enough just on a regular day? Are we educating children in things outside of just stay out of trouble, don't bring no trouble to my house? Are we talking to our children about everything that they need to really be learning about who they are to become? I love my parents deeply. They did everything for me they possibly could. But I do feel like as an adult, there was more they could have spoken to me about, because as an adult, they talked about it now. So I'm like, where were these gems when I was 12, 13, 14? And it's about teaching our children like they know already. And if they don't, at least we'll put them in a position where they do, because we're constantly talking to them. Know your rights, know what you can and you can't say and do in the areas you're in, know how to be a driving force. And you know what, this is one of the main reasons why I started We Think in the first place. If you don't know, never ever be ashamed to ask. Never ever be ashamed to go and seek the advice from people who already know. One of the main reasons why our youth service and the young people are struggling and they're failing in this world is simply because there's too much work in isolation. We do this over here and they do this over there, and there are so many people around the city who are doing amazing things and no one has a clue what's going on because nobody talks to each other. The communities have to be stronger. There's too much separation and we come together in times of heartache. Why aren't we coming together on a regular day when we can just celebrate everything that is amazing? I went to two different productions on the weekend that were written, performed by young Black artists, whether it be actors, dancers, singers, speakers. We don't talk about these things enough. We don't talk about the great things that are going on, and we always seem to unite when all of the bad things happen. Communities need to strive to be together instead of being divided, because what one finger can do, a whole fist can do a lot more. And I don't think people truly understand the blows we can give to the systems and to the injustices when we actually come together. And then not only when it happens, but we stick together after the fact. I've been in my community doing youth work now. I've been in the community now for 12 years. It's my 13th year working in the community and my 9th year working in education, my 7th year working in around social care spaces. And I'm going to keep doing it, even when I don't get any accolade, which I don't really care about, even when my name isn't brought up in conversation. All the young people I work with, they'll remember that time when Math wrote them a reference for their first job, when he dropped them somewhere when they couldn't afford the taxi, when he paid for their food because they couldn't afford the shopping, when he helped them apply for college, university. These are the things that we have to make sure that we keep doing, because these are the things that do go a long way in preventing what happened to this young lady. Because when you put a circle around a young person, that protective barrier around that young person, and they know their strength, they know their royalty, they know exactly where they stand in this world. I know young people who would have walked into that room, bless that girl, nothing against her because she didn't know, who would have walked into that room and said, not me, not today. And you know why? Because their parents and the people around them have raised them to know what can run and what can't run. And all of our children need to be in those similar positions. So David made a joke earlier on about, oh, Matthew, you got things to do. I've been doing it and I'll continue to do it. And if you email me and you phone me, and I know plenty of people who do it, some of them do it way better and more creative than I do. But the work is being done, but we need to talk about it more, because the more young people realize what's out there to support them, is the more they'll cling to it. There's just so much more for them to see and believe in. You know, we have to represent. Lisa said it, I go to work every day and I'm a Black woman, but I'm a Black woman. I'm a representation of what you can be. David's a very young minister, considering the position that he's in, but the respect that he commands because of what he does and how he does it, immeasurable. So when we look at these things and we look at representation that young people can have, there's no reason for young people not to see their strength. There's no reason for young people not to see their power and their capacity to be so much more than they are right now. And what they definitely shouldn't continue to be on a regular basis a victim. We have to be all about reduction. Once we've been about reduction consistently and we consistently do it, then we can have a conversation about eradication. But what we need to talk about now with child queuing and how we go forward is how can we reduce this from happening again? How can we be supportive? How can we work as a co-op to support these young people all over the country and continue to teach them? How can we create spaces where young people can come when they don't know and leave with information, leave with knowledge, leave empowered and feeling like, do you know what? If anything, I can call that person and that person will back me. If I can't get it from my parents or my guardian or my grandparents, because sometimes our parents just don't, they can't teach you what they don't know. But there should be other places in the community where the children can go and get all of this information. So to that young lady who suffered what she suffered, God bless you. I've prayed for you so many times that these things don't happen. And trust me, unfortunately, these things are still happening all over the country. We just don't know about them. And so any other young person who feels as though they could find themselves in that position, go and talk to someone you trust. Every school has a safeguarding policy and procedure, which kind of goes around. Go to the member of staff if you're the most comfortable talking to, disclose what you need to disclose, and then we take it from there. Every school should have one of those policies, and parents should know what they are as well. So for the young people who spend the majority of their lives in school, get to know that policy, find out member of staff at your school that you feel comfortable talking to, that you need to go and see. And even if you have to dig your heels in, young people, say, I am not moving, so I talk to Mr. So-and-so, so I talk to Mrs. So-and-so, because I need to know that I'm protected, that there's someone who's genuinely fighting for me and has my back. And until that person arrives, I am not moving. I need to talk to those people. And parents need to know that it's okay for their child to be disruptive when there's a cause. Don't tell your children to go to school and just do as you're told all the time. It's okay to be inquisitive. Don't tell your children to be rude and disruptive and unnecessary, but it's okay to be inquisitive. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to disrupt peace every now and again because you don't feel like something's right. Our children are so important. I promise you, we get this wrong, we're the ones who are creating broken adults. It's us. Because we're not doing what we need to do to protect them as children, so when they become adults, they're happy. We're part of that problem. We need to try as much as possible to be a part of the solution, as cliche as that whole thing sounds, but we need to be a part of that solution because those young people need to feel protected at every corner, and what they don't know, they need to know there's a space they can go and get that information. It's like the scripture says, I mentioned it before, my people are destroyed for their lack of knowledge, and we need to empower our young people.
Amen.
Thank you.
No, definitely. Thank you for your time, Matthew, and thanks for coming on.
No problem. I wish you all the best. Thank you. It's nice to meet you all, and hopefully we'll speak again at some point soon. Thank you very much.
No, definitely. So, to go through with the sample size question that we did, if we go over to slide 8, we have a question which is kind of what we've been discussing, which is this idea of what do we think can be done, or what measures can be put in place so it doesn't happen again. So here are some of the comments that our questionee, the people who've done our questionnaires, came back and said, and they said the idea of there being safeguarding in the schools. But as Lisa's mentioned, there should already be these things in place. It just seems that they're more of a tick box exercise and that training day you have to do once a year rather than actual things that people go to and use and things that are actively done. But also going out over to what Matthew said, the idea of just educating our children, educating our children about avoiding stereotypes, profiling, and making good choices so their character is never under scrutiny and therefore they don't find themselves in vulnerable situations. So yeah, some says the forces should have a guideline that's in place, like what they can and what they cannot do, which we think is quite interesting. And it's this idea of, well, I know Dwayne was saying earlier, with all these things in place, is it a case of this young girl saw that if she actually just kind of went along with what happened, that would be the end of it, there'd be nothing more to come of it? And it's kind of this idea of, are we kind of not that we're brainwashed, but do we just think, okay, the easiest thing to do is just say yes, go forward with it, and hopefully that'll be the end of it, rather than trying to stand up for your rights in the situation? Because I know growing up, because I'm from Handsworth, growing up in the area that I'm from, I know that when we used to play in the park, young boys would always be just, the police van would come up, pull up for nothing. We're just playing in the park. Police van would pull up, they'd come, they'd just start picking off one by one, get into the van, get dressed, get stripped off, need to check if you got drugs. And it was like, it just became normal, if that makes sense. So we'd even ask as females, like, what is that about? Oh, it just happens all the time. And then everyone just carries on and continues with what they're doing afterwards. And it's kind of, those kind of interactions start to then, as Dwayne was saying earlier, kind of trickles down to the family. So you think, oh, police, and then before you've even had an interaction with the police, you've got these stories in the back of your mind of these things that have happened, and that's kind of the views that shape you. So do we think this idea of this young 15-year-old girl, is it that she just thought, if I just kind of, not that she's diminished herself, but you almost kind of put yourself into the back to try and please the people at the hope that it's going to finish sooner? So for this, or I just want to hear Randisha's views, because I know she's been quiet for a moment. So yeah, I want to hear Randisha's views on this. So what do you think about it?
If police came into an exam room to me and asked me to exit, it's automatic fear, because what can be so sad, I have to stop my exam? What am I going out the room for? Like, when you see a police officer approach you, it's not anything they automatically have. They're going to search you, you're suspicious, you always have a bad liver. So honestly, I understand why she would agree and yes, because one, there is no parent, mom, should we do let's talk for her, let the father talk. It was just her. Am I a 15-year-old with two teachers and two police? Like, say no, I can't say no. Can I off? No. Can I call my mom? Is my mom here? No. So to me, it's automatically yes. I picture that they said something as if like, we're gonna search you, but it's a normal pat down. If they said strip search, and I think that she would have felt uncomfortable to spoke up then. I don't think they actually said to her, we're gonna strip search you. Come on, we feel comfortable with that. A grown adult, not a child, not even a fellow police officer, come on, we feel comfortable. Just as I think it's total strangers. You have never seen these people, you will probably never see them again. I actually think that the school, they skipped steps in like calling the parents or sending the girl to the head chief. They didn't do any of that. They just skipped to the police officers, and it wasn't even that serious to me because they still didn't find anything. I don't know. As a young person, I am totally lost from the forces now. I've created a generational gap. So we, the young people, are not looking at police officers as much. And I totally understand, because they keep doing things like and expect change, or metro. They're not setting examples as in like, we're gonna fire you, we're gonna prosecute you for doing this. They're not setting examples, fellow officers. They're not public that yes, we're dead wrong. They're not doing that. So it will continue. There are no examples that were.
No, definitely. Thank you for that. Did anyone else want to add anything else as we're coming down?
I think it's possible. I think it's possible that it could have been done out of fear. There's too much that's gone on in the media. Not too long ago, the George Floyd. The young black people, they're scared. So, I mean, I can say now for who I am, it couldn't have happened. But putting myself back in at that age, the fear and the panic, what it does to one's mind when you're in panic. Then when she's already in that situation, the trauma alone to prevent her, the shock to even stand and say no. And what was already said before is because you've got the officers that have abused their authority, and they know. And this is why, as of what's already been said again, our young people need to know their rights. She obviously didn't know her rights, and she was fearful. So I do believe that's what, prevented her. But regardless of the fact that she was able to say yes or no, it wasn't her responsibility. It was for them not to allow that in the first place and not to do that in the first place. She's a child.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely. Did you look?
No, I was just going to say now, we've not got much time left, and we've spoken about some sort of points and some things to use to go forward. Is there any other suggestions, any action points we think that should be raised? If let's say, Scotland Yard are watching now, Met Police are watching, the government officials are watching. What really would you say to them today? In terms of moving forward and suggestions, actions, really to make those necessary changes.
Well, I think it's kind of obvious to them. It should be obvious that there's, I mean, just within the short space of time of everything that's happened with even the murder of Sarah Everard, the way and how the police had photographed themselves with the two sisters dying. There's so many examples. It's ridiculous. And so one of the clear things is you would think they have to address the culture within the police force. There's a clear culture and just normality of when they look and see black people that they deal with them a certain way. And this is not just for white officers. I will go as far to say, and I've even witnessed a young black officer deal with a young black boy a certain way, and there's a clear culture. And I know you heard me say that example as well, Dwayne, that they smelt this young man. He had weed on him. They thought he had weed on him and this was a crowded area, and they chose to pick out this young black boy who must have smelled of weed, and this young black officer dealt with him a certain way. So to me, the training, the way in how they are trained, and how they are kind of how they're inducted in the force, it now becomes second nature that when you see young black people, when you deal with young black boys and girls, that they're going to be problematic, they're going to be a certain way, so this is how you need to deal with them and approach them. Now, you would think that clearly police know that that's a culture, that's a toxic culture, and even the misogyny within policing as well. So I don't understand how they can't know that and they're not addressing it systemically. And that's why my frustration is, it's like we talk, the elephant's there. The elephant's been in that room for how long? I don't know how they managed to navigate around the room without the elephant knocking them out. And so I don't know. So for the Met and for those watching, we know, they know, and we know there's clear issues, but it just seems like they're not aggressively tackling it and dealing with it urgently enough.
I think I would say, going back on what you said, David, we're looking at what the churches can do. A challenge probably needs to go out for us to be having those conversations with the police, the local police in the community, because as you rightly said, just as I was thinking, they know. There's nothing more to say. They know their attitudes need to change. They know it. And whilst I can say I've worked with some good officers,
Yeah.
But for those that just want to, take it upon themselves and be above the law, there are a handful that know exactly what they're doing. So maybe the challenge, like I said, is to go out there and we have those conversations and keep having those conversations, not just a one-off, but keep reviewing as we do want to with the schools, just having that, we talk about multi-networking in our establishment, doing that within the community. And certainly just feeding in to echo those messages, say it's not going away, our views and our thoughts and our feelings, and there needs to be a change.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And to be honest, again, it was only last week. I was just driving to a friend's house, and As I was driving there was a police officer stopping a young black guy basically, and I sort of pulled my car over and stood there and listened because I wanted to make sure the young black guy was okay. You know, and don't get me wrong, you know, the police officer conducted himself fine. He didn't do nothing wrong, but that's the fear, that I have, you know, in the community as I'm walking, driving, and when I see these things, I'm trying to sort of act and support in those ways because we know that, you know, again, we don't understand, we don't know our rights, we're fearful, and some of these things, unfortunately, impacts us and makes us. I would almost say pick the wrong or make the wrong decision, say the wrong thing, and it causes further punishments, unfortunately. So no, I can echo everything really that's been said.
Yeah, and just to give almost a brief overview of what's happened so far. So I know in the first session, the first panel discussion, there was an invitation given by the Met Police to come down to Scotland Yard, New Scotland Yard, have a conversation, start working in collaboration on a potential new way of policing, or almost like a program that they have as a preventative measure that starts to work with young people and starts to work with this idea of the racial profiling, that type of stuff. And I know the invitation was given out on the last episode, and there are conversations that are being had. We're just waiting for a date and things are going to be organised. And as Church Girl Prophecy, the invitation went out. That will be followed through, and there will be the conversation, and the visit will happen. So just to let the viewers know that is in hand, and the conversations have continued since that session. So it's not just things are said and there's no action, but there's actually action taking place in the background, if that makes sense. Also, since the incident, it's, as I'm sure David mentioned it earlier, this idea that although this happened in 2020, it's only this year that the reports come out, and now we see that the 2 police officers have been moved over to desk duty. It didn't happen in 2020 when the incident happened. It's only now that kind of we're aware and everyone else is aware that these things have happened. I know also the Met Police over the BBC have reported that they plan on introducing a new, I think they call it a pilot scheme, where the area that Child Q's from, which is Hackney in London, in Hackney and then a neighbouring borough, they're actually going to stop doing stop and searches in the schools in those 2 areas. So they're not going to stop it entirely, but they're going to not allow it. So what's happened is the police officer there was able to give permission, whereas now it's going to have to be someone higher up, which is an inspector, who has to give the permission for this to actually take place. The source that is on the BBC, if you just search for it, then you'll be able to find it to get it exactly as it is. But they are trying to put things in place, I would say, to try and prevent this from happening. However, it is only in Hackney and a neighbouring area that they're going to trial this and see how it works out.
Yeah, and again, I'll say obviously that's just a source. We don't actually know officially if this is happening, but this is just a source that we've seen on BBC. So obviously we'll have to wait and see if it actually is real,
if it takes place,
because
that kind of stuff.
you know, because let's be honest, there's a lot of things that the police have put forward, in particular things like scrutiny panels and stuff like that, that for me have not been effective. You know, we're sitting here years later, about the same scrutiny panel. That's not actually tackling any of the bad, should I say, policing, basically. It's not tackling it. It's not doing anything, basically. And even there was one answer to say that some, in actual fact, they found it hard to even speak to the people that are in the scrutiny panel. So there are programs like that are in place that are just not effective. And obviously, David, you know, from our sort of conversations that we have, with the police commissioner. So, yeah.
And on top of that, I know it would have been probably 4 hours ago now, but around 4 hours ago, the head teacher for the secondary school that Child Q attended, the head teacher has stepped down. The report does say the head teacher stepped down for health reasons, though. So as Vandisha said earlier, it's this idea of accountability and making a point of something that has happened that's wrong, whereas it says that they stepped down for health reasons, not because of anything else. So I guess our final few moments that we have, and with Vandisha, if you want to give a closing thought, if it's on something that's just been said, or anything that's taken place so far. If we just
we give you 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Max.
Yeah, things like that. Even that, like, stepping down for help. I think that the system masks bad decision much. They kind of cover and say, "Oh, is this enough?" You know, instead of saying this is right and wrong is wrong. I too say that the police, they have much of good. They have so much things that they put in. They have so much to be done, and they haven't started because every problem that they basically the person who does wrong and say, "Oh, they're not working line." Like, not the problem. The problem is not the front line. The problem is something that was too far. They were far, and that is out with it. They're not working until that the trial happens. You know, that's how they deal with stuff. And I think that they have this ability to just fight. You know, just let society what they want with them. Let's say what they think that what was done wrong or how about it, but they block out society and they deal with it their own. So hush on the noise, if you get what I'm saying.
No, amen. No, thank you, Randisha. Lisa?
I just want to echo what I've said before. That's practitioners, take action, don't be afraid, represent. And as safeguarding, you know, like I says, certainly in the schools that I've been in, nothing like this could happen. Use this as a case study. Have the conversations with your peers of all cultures. Have the conversations in your PD, personal development sessions, with all students, and work with your community officers as well, and work together. The parents and the families, bring them in and work together to prevent these things, or as we're saying, to minimize. Start with the eradication until you know, but certainly work together, stand up, and encourage the Black students as well to have their say, to have a voice, and let them know their rights.
Amen. No, thank you, Lisa. And David?
Yeah, I think I'll just echo what I said before. I think just challenging the churches. Let's put a program, an initiative together, a blanket one country, that we're going to open up our spaces and provide learning for young people and for parents and carers and whoever it may be, to know rights in regards to stop and search and other issues, and knowing rights in regards to school as well. Let's create that place. Let's use our places to educate, you know, as well as to inspire, and not just to come together to worship, which is important, but use it what it was for, a hub for the Black community, to come together for that as well.
Oh, definitely. Thank you for that, and thank you for all our panelists who have been on tonight. Also, I'd like to thank Pastor Errol, who works behind the scenes, making sure all the things come together properly and everything runs smoothly. And we'd like to thank all of the viewers also, and those who have been over in the comments.
Yeah. No, let's stay in touch with each other as well, you know, from here as well. Let's not just disappear into our own fields. Let's stay in touch. The viewers that have posted comments, I know there's comments and we haven't read them today, but hopefully we'll be able to keep those comments and get those comments sort of in a framework that we can also keep and use going forward. We hope the Mets and Scotland Yard, any government officials, our pastors, our overseers, I hope everyone's watching this, our communities have watched this, and any ideas that you have as well, please let us know, and let's collaborate and let's work together and let's make change. You know, let's be a people of change, not just talk, let's change. And yeah, once again, panelists, thank you again for your wisdom. Thank you for your words. Thank you for everything, your contribution to this. And yeah, and really have a good night. Amen. So I think you've heard it. I think you've seen that there is the culture element of a lack of knowledge. You've heard the situation around fear. in certain situations, the relationship with the police, that maybe this incident and many other incidences have really broken us and moved us further away from having a good relationship. But also, have you heard about some of the action points and some of the things that we should trial and maybe think about putting in places? You've heard the challenges by Lisa, David, Matthew, and Randisha. So really and truly, what we want to do here and use what we've said today to make those necessary changes. So we hope the right people here are listening, and we hope there's going to be a part 3, and we hopefully there'll be some change going forward in the future. Thank you all to the viewers for listening. Thank you for taking your time out to post, and we hopefully will see you again soon.
It's just convenient. All we offer Jesus, we're sold out. We are bringing back the ark, bringing back the ark. We are people of your presence, people of your presence. We're bringing back the ark, bringing back the ark. We are people of your presence, people of your presence. No more will we live without it, will we go without it. Your glory, no more Take your place till all else fades away. We cry.